Hello, hello, I am Restre Elk, and today we are talking Z Shorties again. Specifically, this is the Thank You Kiha 28 Z Shorty Lucky Bag from Rokuhan. When I first saw this lucky bag on the list, the name got me curious. I knew that the Kiha 28 was a diesel multiple unit, but I didn't know why we were thanking it. So I did a little research. It turns out the Kiha 28 was first created for the Japanese National Railways. After the JNR was divided up and privatized, 28s were used for rural and sightseeing routes, and they've been gradually phased out over the years. The last Kiha 28 in regular service was the Isumi Line's number 2346, which ran connected to Kiha 58 number 125. On November 27th of last year, number 2346 made its final run, and so the Kiha 28 is officially retired. And that, my friends, is why we are saying thank you, Kiha 28. So let's talk about what was in this bag. I had planned on doing a full unboxing, or unbagging, I guess, but I botched the recording and didn't check until after I launched into a little project with some of the contents. I'm getting ahead of myself just a little. Fortunately, I remember what was in the bag, so I can give you the rundown. But before I do that, I want to point out these are meant to be mystery bags, and I don't know if every bag has the same contents. So if you go and get your own Thank You Kiha 28 lucky bag, you may get some different stuff inside. That said, Rokuhan says all the lucky bags have everything that you need to start running a train except batteries. So it's safe to assume there'll be an oval of track and a power pack, as well as chassis for the Z Shorty units that will be inside. Now, in this picture, we have a 2-pack containing the Z Shorties of Kiha 58 and 28, and a single pack that had the Z Shorty Kiha 52. Towards the back is the 52, whereas the two forward units are the 28 on the left and the 58 on the right. You can't tell from this picture, but the bag also had two motorized chassis and a non-motorized chassis. I've already got those installed. I put one motorized chassis in the Kiha 28 and the non-motorized chassis in the 58. The 52 got the other motorized chassis. These 110mm straight track sections, the re-railer, and the power pack were also included in the bag. Let's run down what's not in this picture, and then I'll show you where it all is. There was a Z Shorty oval set, which had 8 45mm radius 45-degree curves, and two 55mm straight sections. There was also a Japanese farmhouse and a railroad crossing set. Now then, I mentioned a project, so let's get into that. I've said this before, I'm sure, but I'm fascinated with the concept of fitting model train layouts in small spaces. That spun off into an interest in portable layouts. I picked up some plastic storage containers in different sizes and started experimenting with putting Z Shorty layouts on top of them. But I ran into some issues with the first few that I tried, and I got kind of discouraged. After that, I set the whole concept aside and went on to other projects. But this lucky bag inspired me to try again. And not just to try again, but to attempt my smallest layout yet. So, here it is. There's the Z Shorty Oval, the farmhouse, and the railroad crossing. You'll notice on the crossing that the gates are gone. It turns out if you have a crossing gate right before a 45mm radius curve, paired Z Shorty units connected by a long drawbar will bump up against the gate and derail. I should have checked that before gluing everything down. I ended up just snapping the gates off. They're inside this case, actually. It turns out they're handy tools for dealing with Arnold couplers. Most of the ground cover is left over from the Z Shorty diorama scenery pack, with some additional turf that I had laying around. The street light is also left over from the scenery pack. I figured the kind of eccentric person who would build a railroad to nowhere around their farmhouse might want a little extra outdoor light for nighttime operations. In this picture, we see the back of the farmhouse and the front of the case. There's a little gap in the stone around the roadbed so the power pack can be plugged in. And honestly, if you look close, you may see some unintended gaps elsewhere in the ground cover. This picture shows the interior. The shallow frontmost space has the re-railer and a little zipper bag with couplers and drawbars, as well as those snapped-off crossing gates. And the rest of the spaces each hold a Z-Shorty unit. The Kiha 28 and 58 are there next to the power pack. Down in the front right corner, you can see the Kiha 52, and I'm left with 3 empty spaces. The track is mostly held on with white glue. It has a little bit of give for when the lid flexes as it's being opened and closed. There's also some carefully placed drops of super glue to provide extra grip. The house is glued down the same way, and the scenery I put down using the same method as the diorama, brushed on white glue. The packing foam makes pretty good padding, so I'd be confident in driving somewhere with this on my passenger seat. I will point out, this is an experiment, and it's not perfect. There's the aforementioned crossing gate problem that I should have checked before I started gluing everything into place. And some green paint on the lid would have made the thin and bare spots in the ground cover a little less obvious. The sealant that I used, which is your typical mix of white glue, water, and a drop of dish soap, worked pretty well, I think, but I should probably do another layer. Every time I open this lid, it loses a little ground cover. But all that we can put down to lessons learned. As I said, this was an experiment, and now I have a solid basis for building more of these type of high portability layouts. I guess that is about all I wanted to say about Rokuhan's Thank You Kiha 28 Lucky Bag and the tiny little layout that I built with it. I believe the Lucky Bag is still available on Rokuhan's online shop, and it seems like a pretty good way to start with Z Shorties. If I had used a bigger container, I would have been able to include those 110mm straight sections and have a significantly larger oval. And the farmhouse and crossing add a little bit of visual interest, so it's not just your Kihas and your track. So with that, this has been Restre Alk, and I will see you next time.